With the Republican-controlled Congress giving President Donald Trump pretty much free rein to enact any policies he desires, it has been left to the states and the courts to provide the necessary checks and balances to the man who is grasping for more power, more and more power. Since Trump's inauguration, Democratic attorneys general have filed 30 lawsuits combined against the administration, focused on far-reaching issues, including immigration and due process, tariffs, federal worker layoffs, and the dismantling of federal agencies. And in many cases, they're winning. Just on Thursday, a federal judge ordered the reinstatement of the National Service Program, AmeriCorps, and its grants across 24 Democratic-led states after DOJ and the administration tried to dismantle it. Joining us now, 3 Democratic attorneys general that were part of that lawsuit: Delaware Attorney General Kathy Jennings, Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser, and Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul. Thank you all very much for coming to the weekend. So some Democratic attorneys general have described entering the next phase of their legal battles against the Trump administration. Attorney General Raoul, I'll start with you. Do you agree that you've entered a new phase? And if so, what makes this phase different?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a continuous experience for us, because each and every day, and quite frankly, each and every portion of a day brings a new challenge to us. Certainly, we entered different phases of different litigation that we're engaged in, where we start often with temporary restraining orders and then preliminary injunctions, and sometimes there are appeals on certain portions of our claims to courts of review. And so depending on which matter you're talking about, we're in a different phase. But with each and every day, there's a new action.
A.G. Jennings, you know, one of the things that we continue to see with this administration is emergency appeals. On Friday, Trump asked the Supreme Court to let him basically gut the education department in an emergency appeal. It's happened over and over and over again, right? That they kind of want to get thrown on this shadow docket. And I'm curious what you think of that as a strategy. It seems like at least Ketanji Brown Jackson, the Supreme Court justice, is getting a little exhausted by all of these emergencies.
That's exactly right. Good morning. And Trump has had to appeal to the United States Supreme Court quite often, because we're beating him in the courts below. And right now, the Democratic state attorneys general are the strongest bulwark that this country has against Donald Trump's cruel and arbitrary decisions. And so using the shadow docket isn't the right way to go. Shadow means that it's not transparent. And what I believe is that we're going to prevail whatever court we are in, because we have the law and the United States Constitution on our side. We're going to continue to fight, and we are going to continue to win.
General Weiser, the Supreme Court did something that I find extremely troubling, and that is they have allowed DOJ to access Social Security data. That is the most personal and private of private informations of the American people. How concerned should we be that now people who were brought in by someone who was not elected and not Senate confirmed these folks will now have access to our information?
I'm concerned about that. And we brought our own case, involves other private information, your tax returns, your bank accounts, all this held at the Department of Treasury. And what we highlighted in that case, and we won in that case like the others we're talking about, is that people who are unsupervised, people who are not trained, people who didn't follow protocols had access to information that could end up on the dark web and other places. There are protocols in government to protect people and to protect our information for good reasons. The Supreme Court making this decision, as A.G. Jennings said, in a hasty way on the so-called shadow docket, it's not the right way for them to decide important issues. There's too much room for error. It should take its time, as Justice Jackson said. It should be careful and deliberate. This administration is being reckless. They're acting hastily. And the way DOJ has gone about their work is very concerning. That's why we brought this case against the Department of Treasury. That's why we won. This other case is not one that we were involved with, but it obviously concerns us, and we're going to keep protecting the American people.
AG Raul, what do you, as you see it, what do you think is kind of the most dangerous actions that the administration has done that have gone to court? I know, for you guys, it's all probably the rule of law. So put that one to the side for a bit, but that's a huge one. Of the things that have gone to court that you've seen work its way through the courts, what's most concerning to you?
Well, first of all, I think generally across the board, there's not a single action that we have filed because we have a policy difference with the administration. Right. We do have that policy difference, but we filed each and every case because the Constitution has been thrown out the window. The laws enacted by Congress have been thrown out the window. We filed these lawsuits because they've been pursued illegally. And Donald Trump said maybe a month or so ago, when asked whether he has the obligation of following the Constitution, he says, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. We cannot stand aside as attorneys general or as a public at large when we have a president of the United States who took an oath to uphold the Constitution, who's saying that he doesn't know whether he has to follow the Constitution. Certainly for me as a cancer survivor, the NIH grants and NSF grants that allow research institutions to research cures for cancer and other disease is a personal one to me. Birthright citizenship is a personal one to me because I am a birthright citizen. But across the board, it's a methodology.
A.G. Jennings, there's so many things. You guys are all of you are firing on all cylinders to push back against this administration. Are there things coming down the road that you have your eye on that we aren't paying attention to just yet?
Well, we're paying attention to everything he does. And when he breaks the law, and we have the legal tools in our toolbox, which we tend to have pretty strongly, we're going to fight him. He seems to be very focused right now on immigration and requiring people like friends of mine who fight domestic violence to sign certifications to get violence against women funds that require these organizations to agree that they are not going to do anything illegal in the immigration front. They're not going to practice diversity. They are not going to do X, Y, Z. And it just makes no sense to me. These are grants that have historically been handed out to victims of domestic violence. They've been a bulwark for our state and states across the country fighting against domestic violence. And now they're being asked to certify to things that have nothing to do with their organization's mission. That's cruel, that's unnecessary, and it's hurting victims directly.
A.G. Weiser, one of the things that we know about this administration is they're not scared to go after their political opponents, and the retaliation personally on folks who they see as their enemies comes almost every single day. Are you worried about political retaliation personally?
Well, President Trump's attacked me personally on Truth Social, and I have had death threats against me. I'm putting myself out there to run for governor of my state to stay in elected public service because I'm not afraid. And I believe that this republic is a republic where everybody has the rights accorded under the Constitution. The 14th Amendment says all persons have due process of law. My family came here after surviving the Holocaust. My mom was actually born in a concentration camp and was liberated by the U.S. Army. And so, like my fellow AGs, protecting the Constitution is personal to me. I'm not afraid of standing up for what I believe in. I recognize that we're living in a very dark time and a time when People who are elected officials, even judges, are being targeted, but we're fighting for something we believe in, and we have work to do. We have our own obligation to the Constitution. It's worth mentioning, and A.J. Rowell said this, the president said he doesn't know if he's to follow the Constitution, and that's clear he doesn't know because the first day in office, he tried to override the 14th Amendment's protection of birthright citizenship. And when that case went to the Supreme Court, people weren't even defending the merits of what he did. The question that was really on the table is whether or not everyone or every state has to bring their own case, or can you get a universal injunction to protect the Constitution? When the Constitution's on the line, I'll fight for it, and I'm not going to be afraid.
Attorneys General Kathy Jennings, Phil Weiser, and Kwame Raoul, thank you so much. What a treat to have all three of you on today. We'll have to do it again sometime.